All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Professional Volunteer Podcast. And I have got another great guest for you today, somebody that I have once again been following on Instagram for a while. Instagram seems to be the home of the great guests for our podcast. And this guest has a journey somewhat similar to mine when we talk about how we got started on Instagram, and I think you'll hear that in a minute. So welcome to the show. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling everybody who you are, where you're from.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Kara McDaniels, and I am from a small town in central New York. For those of you that think that upstate New York, I'm not naming any names.
I knew that was coming.
There's a whole state of New York, and we're right in the middle. So I'm from Cazenovia, New York, and I am a firefighter EMT volunteer.
Well, thanks for coming on. Welcome to the show. And yes, people have heard me say those very similar words before. So we refer to where I am here in the Hudson Valley or the Catskills as upstate. But our friends that are really upstate call us obviously downstate.
Downstate.
And they're upstate. So
That's right.
it's a battle of the upstaters today.
That's right.
Depending on what part of the state you fall into. But we're all New Yorkers, and
That's right.
it's good to have another New Yorker on the show. So I mentioned your well, let's talk about your fire service journey first. How did you get started in the fire service, and how long has that been?
Well, I'm fairly new to the fire service in terms of being a fireman. I have only been in about 6 years, and I grew up in the firehouse in my department. I was a firehouse brat. My dad was a lieutenant on the department, and I kind of grew up with it, and having the scanner on all the time at the house, and being involved in all of the different family-oriented events, and seeing that the firehouse was really an extension of my family. So I always had a big interest in it. I've always been very service-oriented. I work in the medical field as my regular job, and I got started in my department as a critical incident stress debriefer. Initially. So I wasn't an active fireman or a EMT at the time. And I just helped out with the local ambulance corps and the fire department when they had a bad call, or, something went down, or they had some stuff happening within the department. And one of the calls that I came on as a stress debriefer was for a 10-year-old that had fallen into a well on a property on Halloween during a Halloween party. And he was they were playing hide and seek, and he had fallen into the well. So our team responded, as did our local ambulance corps. And it was an amazing, miraculous save. He, coded, I don't know how many times, but they were able to get him back. And it was a real big concerted effort with many of our guys. And of course, anytime that the dispatch comes in that it's a child, of course you get a huge response, and everybody has that pucker that they just want to get there and help. So it involved many of the members of our department. So I did a critical incident stress debriefing with the department and with the ambulance corps, and something just kind of clicked in me after doing that particular call. I just thought, I have to do more. I have to do more to give back to my community, and now is the time for me to do that. And so I filled out an application, and I went in and met with one of the senior guys, and there was a little bit of trepidation at first. I'm the only female in my fire department.
Okay.
And so he said, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to do EMS? And, do you want to do like fire police? And I was like, no. I was like, I want to be a fireman. I want to do all of it.
Yeah, you're gonna be a firefighter, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So he was like, oh, wow. Okay. So I just really dove in with both feet, honestly. And I made it my goal to really learn everything that I could learn. So I just enrolled in like whatever classes were available in my area through New York State Fire. And I just did everything. I did the 6-week intensive boot camp for firefighters instead of doing like firefighter 1, firefighter. I just did the boot camp class. So I did 6
Yep.
weeks, like 8 hours a day. It was June and July. And I just,
Hottest time of the year. Yeah.
well, you're going to feel what it's like.
Yeah, you're right. If you're going to do it, that's a good time to do it. Yeah.
You know, and then that was it for me. You know, I was really lucky, really fortunate to have some excellent instructors during boot camp. And I think that New York State fire instructors are really, really strong and knowledgeable, and you can learn so much from. So I was very fortunate to just get into that training and just rock right through it. And yeah, then I was like, all right, what else we got? What else can I learn?
So at that point, were you already an EMT? Did you already have your
No,
EMT
I took my
Okay.
EMT after I did the
Okay.
firefighting stuff. I did the firefighting stuff first and then EMT.
Okay.
And well, it kind of like crossed over,
Sure.
but yeah. But yeah, I started out as just doing the fireground stuff first, and then I did
Okay.
EMT.
Which is a huge commitment, and I have this conversation with people all the time because I've had a few friends and members that come out of the Firefighter 1 program or the fire training series, and they're like, "Oh, what's next? I want to jump into EMT." And I'm like, I love your motivation, but you might want to like take a week off, take a week off and think of it. Cause it's to do the two, especially in like a back-to-back format, it's a commitment. It's definitely a toll on, your time, your personal life. I mean, it takes a while to get through all that.
Yeah, it takes a long time. And at the time, they did not, I think the CME pilot program for recertification in New York State was just coming out. And so when you do that at the time, there was a commitment that you were going to have to go through classes to recertify
Sure.
again down the road. And you had to kind of know that too and plan for that and block out time,
Yep.
in the next 2 years that you were going to
Absolutely.
have to do that. So fortunately now we have the CME program, so it makes life a little bit easier for our volunteers.
And not that I plug our state government very often, and I'm not a political guy, but thanks to them for giving us an extra year this year because
Yes.
of all the pandemic stuff going on. So I was set to expire next year, and I was like, score.
I know.
We got an extra year to go.
I know.
So your station is combination fire EMS, right? You do both?
Yes, we do both. And I think like many departments now, we do a large amount more EMS runs than we do fire runs every year. We're very busy with EMS. We run rescue only, we're BLS, and we don't transport. So we have a local volunteer ambulance corps here that we work very closely with, and they transport, after we get there and do all the work.
Exactly. Yes, of course. So, so your once you got through all your fire classes and you got your EMT, from what I gathered from speaking to you, the last couple of years, you've been a little more dedicated to the EMS side. I don't want to say that you're not dedicated to the fire side, but your focus for what you've been doing, your job-oriented focus at the firehouse has been slightly more on the EMT side. I know you mentioned helping set up the CME program for your firefighters and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. So as with many volunteer departments, you're really hurt for members. And that was one of the big driving forces for me to get all my certifications in both sides, both EMS and fire. So I could be of most use to the department because I could
Right.
do everything. So when I first came in, they were really, really short on SCBA interior qualified firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually ended up doing a lot more of that initially. And then I was always on the engine.
Sure.
Fortunately, I live close to the department. We don't do duty shifts at our department. It's just if the pager goes off, you go. So I spent a lot of time on the engine, which was a really incredible learning experience for me. And then I started doing a ton of EMS runs. And during that time, I really worked hard to focus on quality patient care, doing a really good medical assessment, because as rescue, if we are first on the scene, I feel that it is extremely important to have skilled EMS providers. I think that just because you're not transporting the same level of care as though you were transporting that patient and we're going to be seeing the patient for a handoff to the hospital personnel was extremely important. So I really tried to lead by example, especially for some of the other EMTs that were coming in after me, to really take your time on the scene. I think there's a huge kind of cultural rescue thing where you come in and it's just like, here's a Band-Aid, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And real quick, not to interrupt you, but seeing it from both sides, because I do a little commercial ambulance work as well.
Yeah.
But when you're in that role, coming in as the transport unit, there's nothing worse than rolling up on the scene to a group of firefighters that are like, you roll up and there's like no information. You know, it's like, all right, guys, what do you got? And they're like, yeah, you're looking at it.
Thanks.
Right. Yeah. All right, bro.
Okay,
Thanks
then.
for your help. We got this. But
Yeah.
that's pretty much what you're saying is.
Yeah, I noticed that, and that's not to say like that anybody's doing it incorrectly or wrong or whatever,
Right.
but I think that that's just kind of a little bit of a cultural piece that, we're the first people on, but we're there to stabilize the scene, clear the scene, and get back in service. And that still can be accomplished. However, I think it's so important, especially in a volunteer organization where you really need your community's buy-in. Particularly in the way of financial support, or to seek out other volunteers and to continue to keep your department viable as a volunteer service. You need to be having those great connections with your patients and showing them the skill level and, hopefully that they have the confidence that if they call you, they're going to get the help that they need. So that became really important to me. And I think that was noticed in the department. I got a lot of feedback about my patient care skills. And I was invited to start taking part in some of the trainings as like kind of a, not formal instructor, but just to take more of a role in leading some of the trainings for EMS and rescue.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, a spot for rescue captain came up, and because in my department, rescue is sort of a separate division, or it was a separate division from fire.
Okay.
And so rescue captain position came up and I was nominated to run for it, which was really surprising. So at that time, that was 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, there had never been a female officer of any kind in the fire department. I'm still the only female. And there was never a female officer. There was never a female rescue captain ever. Mm-hmm. And so I ran for it, and I shockingly was awarded it. And so I took over the EMS program at that time. And in doing that, I really wanted to bring the fire side and the EMS side together.
Right.
Because it just made more sense to me, since we run such a large volume of EMS calls and we have such a great group of dedicated firemen that may not just have interest in doing the medical training and don't really want to do the medical side of it. But they really need to be involved. And as you said, if somebody's rolling up, they need to be able to tell people what's going on and what they're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I revamped the training program to really include the firefighters that were not EMS more. And so in doing that, I taught them like just simple things about really how to fill out a PCR. And also I started having them do bag checks with us so that they could, if I asked them to hand me a BVM right now, they're not handing me a pulse oximeter,
Right.
Like pulling things down. They're like, I don't know. Do you want this? Like, I'll give you anything you want. Yeah.
Right.
Like everything's coming out of the bag.
Yeah. Eventually just throw the whole bag at you. I don't know what you want.
I'm like, okay, yeah, you're doing a great job, but I really need that BVM.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So and they wanted to come on EMS calls, because those are the calls that we're running, and they volunteered, they didn't volunteer so they can sit at home and miss the truck every time,
Right. Yes.
So to involve them, I said, well, here's what you need to be doing to help your EMS providers if it's a medical call. And then I sort of, I really took on a lot because that was a big shift for the department,
Hmm.
because they had always had a really clear delineation between the rescue squad and the fire side.
Right.
And so that was interesting. I did, of course, get some flack from some of the older members
Sure.
about it. And, my response was like, hey, this is not the time for us to be separating our members from each other. We need to bring the membership body together
Hmm.
and recognize everybody's skill set for what it is and use it to our advantage, because the volunteer service is desperate for members. We have to do better in including and making people's volunteer time useful for them.
Sure. Sure. And you know, one thing that I have found over the years is initially that might be a challenge, but once you start to get a little bit of buy-in and people see
Right.
that, oh, wow, look at this. Now I can be a little bit more useful when I'm on that scene, as opposed to 10 guys just standing around staring at two people working because they don't know what they should be doing. It's not that they're bad people, it's just
Right.
it's just that they don't know what to do.
Right.
So so they all just kind of stand back with their arms crossed and just kind of peer over what's going on. And once they start to buy into the fact of, oh, so all right, I don't have to be an EMT, but I can be useful to you.
Yep.
So that's a good bridge to cross, because they absolutely can be useful.
Yeah, and I think that to your point about people's comfort levels, that was a huge missing piece that I think just wasn't really thought of or addressed. And so, in some of my trainings, I would hold classes like emergency treatment of patients with special needs.
Okay.
So, how to work with folks that are maybe on the autism spectrum that have a different way to communicate, or how to work with folks that have different medical implements or medical devices. That if you're a volunteer and you don't work in a hospital, and you don't see that kind of stuff all the time. When you go on the scene, you're like, I don't want to touch that.
Right, right,
But
right.
we
What do I
have
do? What do I do?
Right. We
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have folks in our community that are on dialysis machines. So we need to see, what does that look like? So when I walk
Right.
into their house, I know what that is. So I started teaching some classes about some of those things. And then I also created a curriculum for emergency care of pediatric patients, because I think that that is a notoriously difficult scenario for many career or volunteer
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
fire EMS folks, because
Sure.
it's against nature, right? Like we don't think of kids dying, we don't think of kids getting hurt, things like that. In my professional career, I worked in peds palliative care and hospice for many years, and I did home care for it. And so it was something that I had knowledge about, and I thought in the emergency services field, we're not doing our firemen a service by not talking about this and not preparing them for and educating them about these topics.
Hmm.
So I did a little curriculum about emergency care of pediatric patients. And it included also how to identify suspected child abuse and what to do about being a mandated reporter, because many of us don't realize that we are mandated reporters and what that means and what our responsibility is if we see something that's not quite right.
Right,
Because not every call is going to have police on the scene with us. So
right.
I just tried to bring everybody up and try to really offer them quality training that made them feel good about the care that they were providing. And so in doing that, we kind of revamped the EMS program as a team. And that was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to have everybody be a part of it and, have buy-in, as you say,
Hmm.
because that is what's going to make it successful in the long run. If you are doing a good job as a leader, when you step down or move on to a different position, anybody coming in should be able to just take right over,
Right,
and
absolutely.
add their own flavor to it and whatever. But it should not only exist because you're doing what you do.
For sure. So not only does your story speak volumes of you, because you are fairly new in the fire service still, even today, right?
Yep,
But you've
absolutely.
just told, you've just told me your story, which started obviously very early on in your fire service career, and the ability to use your healthcare background to make the organization better, help make the organization better. But it also speaks volumes of the organization, I think, not knowing anybody there, right? I just know
Oh yeah.
I just know where you are on the map. It's all I really know. Um, it speaks volumes of your organization allowing you to step in, help make things better, you know, listening to what you have to say, and, you know, letting somebody, the first female, because that could be a roadblock right there in many
Oh
organizations,
sure. Oh
I mean,
sure.
and it's unfortunate to say. Personally, I think it's ridiculous in today's day and age, but we all know there are departments out there, especially in the volunteer world, where
Hmm.
that would be your number one roadblock. But
Yeah, there were guys that when I came in that did not want me there, for
sure,
sure.
I'm
Even
sure
even
there
though
were.
they knew my dad, even though I was the legacy,
Sure.
even though I grew up knowing them, they did not think that I should be there. And I had one. I mean, I had one guy that maybe just started actually making eye contact and speaking to me, or
Yeah.
letting me speak to him, probably about a year ago. And then I also had another guy that said to me, I don't like women in the fire service, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. And I was like, that's okay. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you do,
Okay.
yeah, you do you. And
Right. Right. Yeah.
I think that that they were open to what I was doing, but I think that part of that is I didn't come in there looking to change everything.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
That's huge.
I didn't just come in the door and say, you're all wrong and this is not the way you should be doing things. I just did what I was doing,
Yep.
and I just let it kind of evolve. And then, I, I think I talk a lot about leadership in the work that I do, and I kind of have a theory about leaders, and I think that this is not just unique to the fire service, but I think there are what I call problem oriented leaders, and there
Hmm.
are solution oriented leaders. So problem oriented leaders are can be great leaders. They have a lot of dynamic, they have a lot of knowledge, they are sure of themselves, and they are great at identifying problems. They see a problem
Sure.
instantly, sometimes before anybody else, right?
Hmm.
And it could be a big deal, it could be something that is potentially life-saving or a big issue, but that creates them only to look for the problem. And so then their thing is to point out the problem, sometimes repeatedly, and try to get everyone else to see that this is where the problem is, and that there is a problem, that we need to focus on that problem, something needs to happen about that problem. And solution oriented leaders see the problem, don't necessarily state the problem, don't necessarily point out the problem to everybody else, but immediately get to work on solution oriented tasks.
Hmm.
And I think that the difference is some departments are going to have many leaders that are problem oriented, and you just kind of run around chasing problems all the time. It's just like, if you get a fire in a balloon frame house, you're just going to chase fire all day long,
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but if you're solution oriented, you're going to say, well, I can chase the problem all day long, or I can start opening up walls and getting some water in there.
For sure. Something you said just a few minutes ago regarding getting into your new position and not immediately trying to change the world.
Right,
That's a huge mistake
right.
in any leadership role. Doesn't matter if it's in the fire service or elsewhere. And I think you might have tapped my phone because because last night one of my previous guests, it's down south, works on the career side and as a volunteer in his hometown. he sent me a text message because he just became a deputy chief in his volley house,
Hmm.
and he shot me a text message and said, "Hey, chief, I'm just got elected in as a deputy chief this week. Any advice?" And in other words than you used, and yours were much more eloquent than mine. In other words, I essentially told him, just get in your spot, chill back,
Right.
take notice, and get buy-in from people and slowly do what you're looking to do. Don't
Right.
just jump in there, and don't just jump in with both feet and try to change the world in a day. And he responded with that. He says, "Oh, I just want to get going." And listen, I say this often, the 15, 20-year younger version of Brian was that guy too. Like, I
Right.
wanted to jump in with 2 feet and just poof, change the world. And you learn that that doesn't always really work.
Right.
It
Right.
most of the time it doesn't work, because if you take the slow and steady path, you'll slowly get that buy-in, even from that guy that told you, "I don't think that women should be in the fire service," and at
Right.
least I'm saying hello to you now, which
Right.
is nice.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
That's great. Yeah.
Maybe
That's
next
great.
year, I'll bring you coffee or something. Who knows?
You never know.
you know,
You know,
you
every
never know.
new day has fresh hope.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So,
um,
yeah, I mean, listen, it's just a great the knowledge and the information that you've brought in. Your journey is just it's good stuff. I mean, it's just good to hear somebody want to continuously make things better and take skills and knowledge that they have from outside the service and bring
yes.
it into the service.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of my big things too is that I am an expert on nothing. That is my mantra. I am an
Yeah,
expert on nothing.
right.
I know a little bit about a lot of things, and I really, really, really try to tap into my talent at the department, in terms of my crew, my EMS
Sure.
crew, and my firefighters, and say, "What do you know?" So, and then I started having them, like when we did skills tables or whatever. I'd say, well, he's really knowledgeable about, hypoglycemia, and this one's really knowledgeable about trauma and does a really good job with the trauma. So I'm going to have you teach the skill tonight. And I just
Hmm.
started putting them in that role, and I think that really accomplishes two things. It lets them know that they're valuable and that their work is noticed, and that they are an important part of the team. And it uh, allows probably three things. It also shows the others that they can learn from each other and rely on each other and ask each other questions, and it brings us together as a team. And then for me, I'm like, wow, I learned something from you. you know
Sure.
and, and then the other thing is that when it's time to bring in a new leader, that's where you find your leaders. you know
Absolutely.
the ones that are able to take on a task like that and crush it, or if they don't crush it the first time, gain skills and confidence in doing it, then that's where you're going to find your next captain of EMS.
Hmm.
We're actually not going to do captains anymore, because I actually uh, revamped the whole thing, so that we're just going to do like a EMS crew chief, which is kind of like a move that I
Okay.
see a lot of departments doing now. There are just too many officers on the scene that we don't need to have an additional captain of this or chief of that or whatever to get the
Yeah,
work done.
it can get a little
Yeah, so we're
interesting.
moving
Yeah.
to like a EMS crew chief that can oversee the medical side of it and help people with the training, but work more together with the fire side. So that was a goal that I accomplished when I was captain of rescue. I wanted to bring those two sides together, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do that through the work of my team.
That's great. And your department, you're considered a suburb of Syracuse, right? Is that
We
where
are.
you would be? Suburb of Syracuse? It's a
Yes,
busy
we're.
area. It's a busy
It
area.
is. It
Yeah.
is. We're actually on the border of we're on the county border, so we do a ton of mutual aid in Onondaga County, which is where Syracuse is,
Yep.
with career departments there. So we do
Right.
mutual aid for them, and we're very busy on our side of the county because it's very rural,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the departments don't have the manpower
Right.
that
Right.
we do. So yeah,
And
we're a busy house.
transporting on the whole EMS side, is that commercial mostly up by you, or are there some volunteer commercial transporters left?
So we have AMR, which I
Yep.
think most people know, right? So we have
Sure.
AMR in one part of the county. The career departments closest to us do have an ambulance, ALS
Okay.
service. Here in our town, particularly, it's still a volunteer ambulance corps.
Oh, it is. Okay. All right.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they have paid paramedics, but everybody else is a volunteer.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Which is becoming a trend. Also, talking to people, not everywhere, but a lot of places that don't want to let it go commercial, but want to continue having the agency. Another conversation for another day.
We could do a whole
But
episode on that.
we could do a whole episode on that, and maybe we will, but not
Right.
today. We're both
Right.
in good moods,
That's
so we'll
right.
leave it.
Let's not go there today.
Yeah, we'll leave it the way it is. All right, so let's talk about social media a little bit. So
Okay.
we met on social media, right?
We
Didn't know each other prior
No.
to that. Very similar story. I mean, prior to getting involved with all the podcasting and trying to spread this professional volunteer message, I mean, my message was firefighter fitness and just getting people motivated. And I can't remember, how did we link up directly? Did it have something to do with fire science nutrition maybe, or something?
It was either that or through direct attack.
Attack. Yeah. So
yeah.
It was through a mutual page, right? Whenever
Yeah.
you see somebody else and you're like, whoa, what the hell is this person doing?
I think most people say that when they see me on my page.
I didn't mean it like that, but I mean, that's what obviously got my attention is you're dedicated to, you share your fitness journey pretty consistently. Consistently enough, you have stickers, right? Anybody that
and t-shirts.
Anybody that has stickers and t-shirts is consistent enough for me.
That's right.
So tell me about that. What inspired you to do that? Because doing that, and I just want to, doing that kind of opens up a whole other avenue of things you're going to experience in your life. I'll say it that way.
For sure.
Because the contacts you make are not always the contacts you want to make. So so let's talk about what got you doing that.
So I was working in my professional career at a non-for-profit I mentioned that did peds palliative care and hospice and end of life, and a new CEO it was through a large national insurance company. A new CEO took over that insurance company and cut the program. So I essentially lost my job in one day, and I was like, well, okay, so I need to make some money, and what do I know how to do? Firefight, EMT, and work out. So,
right, okay.
And here in our area, it's very, 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 very difficult to get into career firefighting just because of the way the civil service works, and the departments are usually combination. There's not many career departments, and they're very small, and they may only hire like 1 to 2 people a year. So it's very challenging.
Typically, it's kind of arranged with somebody that might have already be a volunteer. Yeah, I get it. Which is whatever. Taking care of their own, that's fine. There's
you're right. So it just wasn't like, I know, because when I lost my job, everybody was like, oh, this is great. You could just be an EMT or a firefighter. And I'm like, well, I could be an EMT, but I can't afford to live on that.
Exactly.
At $11 an hour.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was really like into fitness and for myself, and I thought it was very important. And so I went and got certified through AFAA, and I started teaching as an instructor. And at the same time, I was kind of doing a lot of reading about health of firefighters and firefighter wellness. And I was really struck and bothered consistently by the high percentage of line of duty deaths that were caused by cardiac related problems or general poor medical health.
Yeah.
And they were being published and being talked about, and it said, this person came back from a call and suffered a heart attack, or this person was on the fire ground and collapsed, and
Hmm.
and that kind of thing. But then you would never see anything else about it. there
Right.
there wasn't there wasn't a lot about it then. And around that same time, Raleigh Fire did a pretty good study about the effects of a consistent fitness program on their firemen,
Hmm.
and how it reduced their injury risk, their workman's comp, their sick time. And it was the first study that I had seen related to that. And I just thought, oh my gosh, like, that's a career department and they're just now talking about it and doing a study about it. What about all the volunteers? Because I know when I came in, nobody said to me, I mean, I had a knowledge because I grew up in it about
Sure.
how physical it was, and what was going to, what it was going to take. But nobody said to me, like, when I signed up, like, hey, are you in pretty good are you in pretty good shape?
Yeah. Right.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
do you know what this is going to be like? Do you know what overhaul is going to feel like?
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
know?
Yeah.
And so I really became very concerned about it. And typically for me, when I have a concern and I have something I can't stop thinking about, I really need to put it into action. so, so I started Saint Florian Fitness, and Saint Florian, of course, is the patron saint of firefighters. So it
Sure.
made sense to me to have it as a kind of the guardian. Um, and I started teaching functional fitness training for first responders at the gym that I was working at. And then they asked me if I could do it at their fire stations, because it would allow more guys to be involved. So then I started taking it on the road. So I have a bunch of fitness equipment, and I do high intensity interval training mainly.
Hmm.
I do a lot of strength based training, and it's all very functional. It's all designed to mirror the work that we as firefighters and EMTs are doing. And so I really wanted to be a part of pushing that number down, that percentage down of reducing line of duty deaths. That's my ultimate goal with St. Florian Fitness. I really don't make any kind of
Mm,
money to speak on it.
unfortunately, most people in the
Yeah,
fitness world, unless they are really high up in the fitness world, don't.
yeah,
It's kind of like being an EMT. You're not going to make a lot of
yeah.
money.
So I mean, and some people have said to me, they're like, well, you shouldn't be posting your workouts for free, because you could be making, you should be charging people
Hmm.
to do your workouts. But that's not why I started it. I really genuinely feel that if I can get one person, one firefighter, to start making steps towards healthy changes so that they can live and survive, that's what my goal is. It's not,
Sure.
to try to be like the next whatever, Shanti, whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
probably
Good
not
choice.
gonna happen.
Good choice, by the way.
Yeah,
Um, so, do you feel that you've had some buy-in?
I do.
Okay.
I mean, I get a lot of messages
Hmm.
from people that said, thank you for inspiring me to get started. Thank you for making it make sense, because I try to
Sure.
do a lot of education with it, not just like, look at what I can do, because like, who cares what I can do? Nobody
Right.
cares what I
Right.
can do.
Right. Right.
But let me show you what you can do,
Hmm.
And in my classes, when I'm teaching right with my guys and girls, I say guys universally. I don't know. Some women really don't like that, but whatever. So when I teach in my class too, I have all ages and all fitness levels.
Sure.
And I think one of the biggest things is like, it can be really daunting, right? Like, there's especially in the volunteer side, they're like, oh, I've never worked out before. I've never been to a gym before,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And I'm like, well, what can you do? Can you walk? Do you enjoy swimming? Like, I try to make it very individualized, because that's how to make it successful for people. not everybody is going to be a runner. Not everybody enjoys running. Not everybody's going to be super into like CrossFit, like that just doesn't appeal to everyone. So
Sure.
I don't think that you can have a unilateral approach to fitness. I think it has to be really tailored to the individual and the work that they need to do. So I might train the 65-year-old pump operator differently than I'm going to train the 20-year-old, kid that's going to be interior attack.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I think that is really important because you want them to, I say fitness is lifelong. I have a group of, past chiefs that are in their 70s and 80s, and I do a little, what I call golden fitness with them. And just to keep
you got
them
room.
going.
You got room in that group. I'm gonna
Yeah.
need to be in that group soon.
Come on.
Yeah.
But I think it's lifelong, and
Yeah.
if you can get people excited about it, and teach them how to do it without injuring themselves, it really bolsters their confidence and makes them feel like they're doing better. So some of the feedback that I've gotten is that they're not blowing through their bottle as quickly.
Sure.
Their cardio output is better. They feel stronger. Some of the women that I work with in particular, didn't really have they're kind of doing overall body work and cardio, which is, I think, a real big focus for women in fitness. Like they just throw cardio at women like constantly.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's awesome. But if you're going to be a fireman, you need to be able to pick stuff up that's heavy. So we need to work on upper body strength, because women aren't born with upper body strength. That's just a fact. You're not, you have to work on it.
Right.
So, focusing on that has been huge. And then recently I got a message from some of the workouts that I do are line of duty death honor workouts. And one of the ones that I did, I posted on my page, and somebody had shared the workout with the gentleman's wife.
Oh, wow.
And so she messaged me, and I was blown away. That was a really emotional moment for me.
Sure.
And she thanked me for honoring him and recognizing the importance of good health in firefighters, so that, hopefully somebody else wouldn't have to go through what her and her children were going through.
Absolutely.
So that was probably the proudest moment that I've had since I started Saint Florian Fitness.
That's great. I think the biggest issue, and especially in the volunteer world, is just getting people to accept the fact that it is important, right? That's what frustrates the hell out of me, because, I see it from a few different sides. I see it from the instructional angle. I see it from, being an active firefighter for a lot of years. I see it from being an officer. There's just so many people that they just don't get it, and they don't want to get it. It's just like they don't give a shit. And you try to explain to them, listen, look at like you said, look at the numbers, right? The numbers speak for themselves. And look at all the groups and organizations now that are talking about, the fact that we are essentially killing ourselves because we're not taking care of ourselves. And I'm in a pretty rural county, so when I get a new group of recruits and I start talking about fitness, now some of them know because they've been following me on social media for a while, and they're like, oh, here he goes. He's getting on his soapbox. Freaking guy doesn't know what it's like to be, overweight. And I'm like, no, I don't. And I'm 100% honest. I don't know, not because I've always been healthy, right? I have not always been healthy. My mom and dad just blessed me with really good metabolism, right? I went through my McDonald's phase and, all that stuff. And I'm honest with people. But, when I'm talking to these kids, and I say to them, listen, tomorrow morning when you get up, instead of riding the four-wheeler to the end of the driveway to get the mail, walk.
Yeah.
That's step one, just some cardiovascular exercise, just walk. I'm not telling you got to run a 5K tomorrow. I'm not telling you got to sign up at the CrossFit gym. Just take baby steps. But it really is so hard to get that buy-in with some people. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes catastrophic events to get them to even realize that, wow, she was right. boy, that chick Kara that I've been watching jump around on social media for a year, she's on to something.
Yeah,
Right?
right,
Yeah.
right. Well, and I think that that's really a big part of the fire service culture too. Like, we're not super into prevention; we're into
Right.
reaction.
Right.
You know, and so you have that extra layer of challenge because we all kind of have that same mindset.
Yeah.
Otherwise we wouldn't all be doing this together.
And because we know there's a shortage of volunteers, and in some places we're just happy to get somebody,
Yes.
anybody, we're like, oh, the chief's standing there looking at somebody going, well, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Well, you know, look, you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. What do you want to do really isn't the right question,
Right.
for that individual, because it's not what do you want to do? It's like, hey, this is what you could probably do for us now,
Right. Right.
because they don't want to be the bad guy, or they don't want to scare somebody away. If somebody shows up to the station, they're like, oh, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be an interior firefighter because I watched whatever television show last night,
Right.
and you're looking at the person going, ooh, I don't,
Right.
maybe not today, bro,
Yeah.
but
Right. Right.
you know
You don't want to discourage people.
right, exactly.
And that can be a challenge. And I think it goes back to like what we say about anything is when you don't go in looking for immediate change.
Sure.
You don't go in and just say, okay, well, if you want to do this, you have to, cut carbs, increase your protein, start eating vegetables, even though vegetables never cross your lips. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, like that. That's not going to work. And people don't like being told what to do. They like to feel like they're valued and can have something to contribute. So I think individualizing it is really a huge, huge, huge key. And so you can't just say, well, if you want to work out with us, then you have to be able to do all this and you have to be able to wear a 25-pound weight vest like I do and stuff like that. You don't. Let me show
Yeah.
you what you can do. Let me
Right.
give you a lighter weight to start with and show you that you can do the movement. And I think that has helped tremendously. And I've had people that have had injuries and they say, I can't work out because of this injury. And I was like, oh, no, you can, because you have other parts of your body that can move.
Right.
So let me show you how to do that, and once I think that they start to see that they can do something and they're capable of it, it kind of has that like larger effect that they can keep going and do more and learn more and see how they can overcome. And that is what keeps people motivated and healthy. I'm fortunate enough to be part of a group that recently is changing the way that we do PT at the New York State Academy of Fire Science here for the recruits.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so I've been down in Montour Falls teaching.
I know some other people that are in that group.
Yes.
This is good. Look at that. Boy, there's always some. It's crazy. Every time I get on here and I talk to somebody that I've never physically talked to before, I leave with some kind of weird connection back to somebody else that I already know.
If there's one thing that I've learned, the fire service is a really small world.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Don't talk smack about anybody because you're going to run into somebody that knows them at a class or a conference or something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're not kidding.
So I'm part of that group, which has been very exciting for me. But it was very interesting because I had like 18-year-old kids that are taking 14-15 minutes on their CPAP trial.
Right.
And it just blew me away. That was like, I talk about.
It's this generation, the people that are listening on the podcast can't see me, but I'm pretending like I'm playing my Xbox right now. So it's that generation.
I was shocked, that I had this kid that's like, he's lean and he's just like one little wad of muscle and he can't do anything. And I'm like, what is happening? But, the old school method was to get in his face and scream about what a piece of crap he is and whatever. And I'm like, this does not make anybody want to be a firefighter.
Right.
And I'm not gonna, also coddle him and say, it's okay.
Yeah. Well,
you can just put out the fire on your Xbox. You don't have to put out the fire in real life.
Right.
I'm like, unfortunately, we're not quite there yet.
When you get around to stretching that hose line, that's fine with us.
Just LMK, I'm here whenever you are. what I do say, I do really go back to the educational piece, because I don't think that they know. I think they, like you, to your point, they see it on the media, or they watch movies, or they grew up in it, or however, and they ended up taking that civil service exam thinking that, okay, I'm going to be a firefighter, and they get hired, and then they get sent to academy, and it is like, I've never worked out before. I've never been in gym before. I didn't play sports. I'm not
Sure.
the athletic kid. And I said, okay, that's fine. But what I need you to understand is that a charged 2.5 weighs about 138 pounds. So if you can't move forward with that, or go up the stairs with that, that's going to be an issue for you in your career. And
Hmm.
you have 20 years of doing that
Right.
ahead of you. And
Sure.
so I think that educational piece really needs to be there, because that's what's going to be eye-opening for them, and make them really decide, okay, yeah, this is a career for me, or, oh God, I don't ever want to do that. But we need to know either way, because
Absolutely.
we can't have people in the fire service that are not prepared for what's coming, and not prepared to do it for the long haul, because we cannot invest the training and the time and all of that, volunteer or career, in people that really don't believe that they can see it through.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 It's spot on. Spot on. So it's funny, and I want to transition onto our final piece of the conversation that I've been holding back on here. But funny story before we do that. Um, so you and I have talked on the side about some of the things that COVID has screwed up for all of us, and
Yes.
a couple of those things have been, number one has been the State Fire Chiefs Convention here in New York, because a
Yes.
bunch of us were going to that, where
I
we
know.
actually might have like met face to
Met each other.
face. Yeah, actually met each other face to face. And now that you mentioned this fitness at the fire academy piece, I was supposed to be up there teaching for a conference that overlapped with a weekend of the recruit class. So I had
Ah.
been going back and forth with Chris from I Got
Yep.
Your Six in the
Yep.
city,
Yep. Yep. Great
and
trainer.
yeah, so I was excited about getting up early one morning and getting my ass kicked with the
With the
recruits,
recruits. Yeah.
but of course that all fell apart
Yep.
because everything got shut down. So hopefully in the future we'll make all this stuff happen. But
That's right. Yeah. Well, you're always welcome. We'll get you out there.
thank you.
Everything's going to be fine, probably.
Eventually it will be fun.
Right.
So your fire service journey has while not the longest, has been good. It's been successful. You've done quite a bit for somebody in 6 years, which
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. This week you had a election at your station,
We
and
did.
you actually made some history. Not that you didn't make history before, because you were the first female in the fire department, so that was history right there, right?
Well, I was the first female officer.
Oh, first female
There
officer.
were
Okay.
female members before me, but
Okay.
they did not stay. I
They did
still
not say.
remain. No, I still
Okay.
remain the only girl.
Okay. So, and again, some people that listen to this are, and I'm not talking men. I'm talking, there's some women that are going to listen to this and they're going to be like, well, that's bullshit, and we shouldn't even have to be having this conversation anymore. And I agree. I
Mm-hmm.
100% agree with the fact that it's ridiculous that we even have to have a conversation about you being the only female at
Mm-hmm.
this day and age. But with that being said, all right, you made some history this week,
I did.
which is pretty amazing and groundbreaking for your department, right? Which is
Yes.
good. So tell me about that.
So our department's been around since 1810, and as I mentioned before, there was never a female officer in the rescue side of things. So I did that, and then I kind of felt like I did everything I could do with rescue, and it was time for somebody else to come up and take over EMS. So I decided to run for fire line lieutenant. And I was unanimously voted as the first female lieutenant in the history of our fire department. So now I'm a fire line lieutenant, and I got a shiny red helmet and everything.
That is, but no, it's amazing. And I told you earlier in the week, congratulations.
Thank you.
We had spoken, and I knew it was coming up, which is which is cool. And, you spoke about the butterflies prior to the election,
Oh yeah,
which,
I think how I described it was feeling like I was going to barf all day long. Yeah,
yes, yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was
yeah,
it. And,
yeah,
and look, it's crazy, but that happens all the time, and
yeah.
that still happens to me today when there's something going on, because it anybody that's immersed in the volunteer fire service knows you just never know.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason they call it volley ticks for a reason,
Yes.
because you just never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going on the other side of the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just don't know. So yeah, so it's good. It's great to hear that went well for you, and again,
Yes.
congratulations on that. And one thing that I have said many times, not always positively, but this time I'm 100% certain it will be positive, is that typically when you elect your lieutenant in the volunteer fire service, you are electing your future chief.
Right.
So I based on everything that you've said today and that you and I have talked about off air, I think you're going to get there one day, and
Thank you.
we'll talk about that again.
I hope so. My biggest thing since I got into the fire department was for me not to, it was not important to me whether or not, female, male, whatever. This is
Sure.
the end results job. You have to be able to do the job. And that was the most important thing to me. I wanted to be able to prove that I could do the same work. I didn't want any shortcuts. I didn't want any, okay, you can do your push-ups on your knees. Okay, you don't have to climb the ladder, the 90
Right.
foot stick. You don't have to. And I was like, oh yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do everything that anybody else can do. And if I can't, then I should not be in the position that I'm in. So it was very important to me to be able to earn it and really feel like I earned it. And I made that clear to some of my officers prior to me running. I really made the point that if you're going to give this to me because, it's for diversity or whatever, I don't want it.
Sure.
If you're giving it to me because you think over the last 6 years I've earned a spot and I'm ready to take on this new challenge, then yes, please, I do want it.
Yeah.
And so I had that conversation months ago prior, before I even ran, because I really wanted that to be the main point. I don't want the focus to be on whether or not I'm a female, even though it's very exciting to make history. And my dad, when I got in, my dad was like, I think that you're going to do a great job, but I don't want you to be disappointed. You are never going to be a lieutenant there. He just, because he knew he was in since 1976 or something. He was like,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen. And I said, okay. And but the big thing, and he was floored. He couldn't believe that I made lieutenant. He was shocked. And but it was really important to me to truly earn it. And what is really important to moving forward is to continue to earn it every day. I want to make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do to be a good leader and lead by example.
Yeah, listen, your work ethic and your attitude, and the fact that you just want to be able to do everything that everybody else is doing, um, that benefits you in the long run tenfold, right? Because now that person that is going to have something against you regardless,
Oh yeah.
like we mentioned, the person that's going to have an issue with the fact that you're a female, regardless of how good you are or how bad
Right.
you are, whatever,
Right.
is now there's nothing that they can say to you, right? Like it's
Right.
not, they can't say, oh, why, she wouldn't climb the stick, or
Right.
she won't pack up, or she can't do this, or she can't do that, because you there's nothing to say.
Right.
It's just, okay, what's next? Just give me what's next.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no way that they can't hold anything over the top of you, which
Right.
is
Right.
great. And
That was what was really important to me. Um, I call myself a fireman because I think that I earned the right to be called a fireman, and the guys at the station call me a fireman.
mhm,
And I don't correct them and say, no, it's firefighter, or, whatever. Like,
Right.
The tradition and the history of the fire service, there's some things that need to continue to move forward, but you don't need to change it to be included in that.
Right.
That's a big thing for me. I don't need to change everything to be included and prove that I can be a good fireman. That's on me. I don't
Sure.
need the history of the fire service to change to accept me. I need to prove myself so that I can do a good job.
Which you have done, obviously, and very well. So,
thank you.
All right, listen, listen. I'm just going to point out one thing before we say our goodbyes to everybody. Before we say our goodbyes to everybody that's listening, and go back off air, but. When I messaged you to ask you if you wanted to be on the show, your response was something like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And we have been on for an hour and 10 minutes.
You got me going.
Yeah, and we hit on some great stuff. So
I hope so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This was amazing. And I thank you for those of you listening on Wednesday, which is when or whatever day after it's been posted live. And we started this at 9:00 on a Saturday morning. And thanks for getting up early. And
yeah,
although I guess
I always get up early.
Yeah. yeah. Thanks for getting up early and getting on with me. And tell everybody where they can find your social and get in contact with you if they so desire.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Saint Florian Fitness, and I'm also on Facebook, Saint Florian Fitness as well. Messaging is open for both of those, and on my Facebook page, if you're in the New York area and you want to book a health and wellness seminar, you can book on my Facebook page as well.
Yeah, definitely. If you are not following Kara, jump on and give her a follow, because she's got some great content on there, and I don't think you'll be disappointed, especially if you need a little extra inspiration in your life to get out there and get busy. So thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Right.
It's great to be here. I'm really excited about it. Thanks for spreading the message.
Absolutely. And once again, congratulations, and thanks for everything you're doing. Stay healthy and stay safe out there.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.